Let's start with the example I was talking about. A toy rocket is fired into the air from the top of a barn. Its height h above the ground in yards after t seconds is given by this function. What was the maximum height of the rocket? Remember, whenever you have this word maximum or minimum, that means we are looking at the vertex. And how do you find out the vertex when you have a standard form? You need to use this equation, x equals minus b over 2a. It will give you the x coordinate of the vertex. Let's apply this. A is minus 5, b is 10 and c is 20. So minus b over 2a is basically this. The x coordinate of the vertex is minus 10 divided by 10 is 1. But this is not the answer. You need to put this back into the equation because we have to find the maximum height, which is on the y-axis. So y equals maximum height equals minus 5 into 1 square plus 10 into 1 plus 20. So the answer is basically minus 25 plus 10 is basically, what do we get? Minus 5 plus 10 is 5, 5 plus 20 is 25. This is our maximum height and the vertex is 1, 25. The maximum height occurs at 1 second and the maximum height is 25 yards. Let's look at the second question. How long was the rocket in the air before hitting the ground? So when it hits the ground, what is the value of h? What is the height? H equals 0. These are the tricks that you need to understand. We're basically asked the x-intercept, the time when it hits the ground. And if you have the graph in front of you, it will become extremely easy for you. I have drawn the graph. Let's have a look at this. This is basically how the graph looks like. And see, this has a vertex at 1, 25. We have already calculated this. And you know, it's basically an n-shaped graph because a is negative. And the y-intercept is this. So everything is there in front of you. Now we need to calculate this value. So when h equals 0, the equation looks something like this. We have minus t square plus 10t plus 20 equals 0. Let's simplify this. We can divide in the entire equation by minus 5. We will have t square minus 2t minus 4 equals 0. If you look at the equation, we can't simplify the equation, so we will have to use the quadratic formula. I hope you remember the quadratic formula. It's basically x equals minus b plus minus square root of b square minus 4ac over 2a. Please put in the values and the answer that you will get is t equals 1 plus square root of 5 and t equals 1 minus square root of 5. This is basically not acceptable because it is negative. It is basically this answer that we are getting. Mathematically it's fine, but you see time can't be negative. So our answer is t equals 1 plus square root of 5, which is basically 3.24 seconds. See, it is basically 3.24 seconds. So this is the answer. Let's have a look at the last part. At what time will the rocket be at a height of 22 yards? Simply replace h with 22 and you will have your equation. 22 equals minus 5t square plus 10t plus 20 is the equation you need to solve. And if you have the graph, it becomes very easy to understand this. Let's say we are basically looking at this point 22, the height which the rocket reaches. And now at what time does it reach this height? Draw a straight line and see where it cuts this graph. It is cutting our quadratic graph at 2 points. One is this point and the other is this point. So you will get 2 answers. Now, are the 2 answers correct? Yes, both the answers are correct. The rocket reached a height of 22 yards at this point when it's going up and at this point as well when it is coming down. So if you have a grid in question, both the answers will be correct. You can put in any value and it will be correct. Let's now solve our equation. We have minus 5t square plus 10t plus 20 minus 22 will give us minus 2 equals 0. Okay, we can't factorize this, so you will have to use the quadratic formula again. Please put in the values and the answer that you will get is 3 equals 5 plus square root of 15 over 5, and another answer, or t equals 5 minus square root of 15 over 5. This translates to 1.77 and this translates to 0.23 seconds. This is basically 0.23 and this is 1.77. Both the answers are correct. Let's have a look at this question. Paul throws a book straight up in the air. The height h of the book at time t is given by this equation, where h is measured in meters. How far from the floor was Paul holding the book when he threw it? So when he threw it, the time was 0. That's the first hint that you have. So when t equals 0, what is the height? H equals, this will become 0, this will become 0, h equals 4. That's our answer. See, this was easy. Let's look at the second option, second question with a different color. Second question, at what time does the book fall to the floor? At what time does the book fall to the floor? When the book falls to the floor, what's the height? H equals 0. So when h equals 0, our equation will look something like this. Minus t square plus 3t plus 4 equals 0. Let's solve this. Let's multiply this equation by minus 1 to make t square positive. T square minus 3t minus 4 equals 0. You have to do the midterm breaking. We will get t square minus 4t plus 1t minus 4 equals 0. Let's take t common, factorize t minus 4 plus 1 here, t minus 4 equals 0. Our factors are t plus 1 and t minus 4 equals 0. So t equals minus 1 or t equals 4. 4. You know time can't be negative, so you will have to reject this answer. Our answer is t equals 4. Let's look at the third part, and for that I've already drawn the graph for you. Okay, at what time does it reach the same height from which he threw it? This is an interesting question and it involves multiple steps. So if you look at the graph, this is what the graph looks like. So the question is asking at what time. So it means our answer basically lies on the x-axis. Does it reach the same height from which he threw it? So what was the height when he threw the book? That's the first thing. That is t equals 0. When t equals 0, you need to find the height from which Paul threw the book. But t0 is not our answer. At t0, we know height equals, even from the equation you can see, h equals 4. We already found this in question number 1. Now we are being asked this time when it reaches the same height again. So you see, the book is going up. From this point onwards, the book is going up. It reaches a maximum point and now it is coming back. This is the time we need to know when it reaches 4, the height 4. And if you have a graph, you can see our answer is 3. But let's say if you don't have the graph, you need to solve the equation. And how can we solve the equation? Now you need to put h equals 4 and solve for this t. Very simple. When h equals 4, what's the equation? We have minus t square plus 3t plus 4. So we need to know the time at h equals 4. That was the question, but 4 was not given to us. That was the trick. 4 and 4 will cancel out. Let's multiply this equation with minus 1. We will get t square minus 3t equals 0. Please never cancel t out. Whenever you have a quadratic equation, you must get two answers. Please remember. Let's take t common. What do we get? 3 minus t minus 3 equals 0. So one answer is 0. That is something we already know. And the other answer is t equals 3. This is our answer. The time it reaches the same height from which Paul threw the book. That is 3. Let's have a look at this interesting question. Over the course of a year from April to the following March, we have a timeline. A business owner sees a rise and fall in her monthly profits, which can be approximated by a quadratic function. A maximum profit, we have a hint here, a maximum profit of $12,000 is recorded during the month of September. Okay. By January, that figure has dropped to $4,000. According to these numbers, approximately how much profit in dollars did the business owner record during February of that year? Negative profit just indicates a loss. I have already drawn a grid for you. So on the x-axis, we have the number of months. This is April. She starts with April. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, and March. So we've got like 12 months here. And on the y-axis, we have got profit. On the x-axis, we have got months. Okay. So now we need to come up with an equation. We have a maximum profit, that is the vertex. So when you have the vertex, you should immediately realize that you can form the vertex equation, vertex form equation, that is a into x minus h whole square plus k. And we have our h and k. H is basically the month of September, which is the 6th month. See, from April till September, it's the 6th month. We have H as 6 and K is already given to us, that is 12,000. So let's replace these values into our equation and see what do we get. We have profit equals A into X minus 6 whole square plus 12,000. This is our equation. Now we need to find A. And for that, we are given another point. That is, in January, the profit is basically 4,000. There you go, we have this point. So in the 10th month, we have 4,000 as the profit. Let's replace this, basically 10, 4,000 into our equation and find the value of A. So if we replace this value, what do we get? We have 4,000 here, A into 10 minus 6 whole square plus 12,000. 4,000 minus 12,000 is basically minus 8,000 equals 10 minus 6 is 4. 4 squared is 16A. If you divide this, you will get A equals minus 500. So our equation basically looks like this. Our equation is profit equals minus 500. This is our A, x minus 6 whole square plus 12,000. This is our final equation, but we are not done yet. Now this A is minus 500. It is a hint that our graph is basically an N-shaped graph. So if I draw the graph, it will look something like this. In September, the maximum value is 12,000. And we have another point. So if I draw a rough graph, it should look something like this. It should look something like this. This is the graph. And this is our vertical line. This is the mirror line. This is x equals minus b over 2a. So what's our target answer? Approximately how much profit in dollars did the business owner record during February of that year? During February of that year, that is the 11th month. So we have our x, we have to find our y. Let's just replace 11 into this equation and see what do we get. Okay, so if x equals 11, profit is basically minus 500, 11 minus 6 whole square plus 12,000. Let's do the math. We have profit equals minus 500 into 11 minus 6 is 5, 5 squared is 25 plus 12,000. You can use a calculator here. Minus 500 into 25 is minus 12,500 plus 12,000. You subtract this, we get minus 500. That means during the month of February, the profit is minus 500. Basically, it's a loss. So if you have negative profit, it indicates a loss. This is already told in the question. So the answer is basically option choice B. Next question. A real estate purveyor purchases a 60,000 square foot warehouse and decides to turn it into a storage facility. The warehouse's width is exactly two-thirds of its length. What is the warehouse's width? Round your answer to the nearest foot. Okay, interesting. So if the length is L, the width should be two-thirds of its length. Two-thirds of L. So the area is already given to us. Area equals 60,000 square foot. And area equals length into width. Let's simply apply the formula and see what do we get. So length into width is length into, and width is this. So we need to have one variable only. Length into two-thirds of length equals 60,000. This is the equation that we need to solve. So we have 2 over 3 L squared equals 60,000. Again, do not multiply. Be careful. Remember the strategy. L squared equals 60,000 into 3 divided by 2. Now I know 60 divided by 2 is 30 and 30 into 3 is 90. 90 and we have these three zeros. So the width is, L squared is 90,000. If L squared is 90,000, length should be square root of 90,000, which is basically, we've got 4 zeros, we'll be left with 2 zeros. L equals 300. So if the length is 300, we are not done yet. Please understand, our target answer is what is the warehouse's width. So the width is two-thirds of the length. And if the length is 300, this is two-thirds of 300. Cancel this out, what do you get? 100. 100 into 2 is 200. This is our answer. And I found another very interesting question. Trust me, this one is interesting. Let's have a look. A fountain shoots water up to 25 feet into the air. If the water takes 5 seconds to fall back to the ground from its highest point, write a function that models the water's height h at time t. So we have to basically come up with the equation. And a lot of times you see that I don't include option choices. Either it's because it's a gradient question or because I want you to come up with the equation or do the calculation yourself. That's the reason. Okay, so on the x-axis we have our time, on the y-axis we have the height, and we have to form the equation. You can either write the standard form, which is y equals ax square plus bx plus c, or you can write the vertex form, y equals a into x minus h whole square plus k. You can form any, whatever you are comfortable with. I'll look into this one, the standard form. So the first thing you need to understand is what is ax square? What is a? Whether the graph is upward open, whether it's downward open, is it positive, is it negative? Let's have a look at this graph. Let's say if time equals 0, what will be the height of the fountain? It's common sense. So if t equals 0, the height of the fountain should be 0. As time increases, the height of the fountain will increase, it will reach a maximum value and then it will come down. So the graph should look something like this. So it's an N-shaped graph. The first thing you should notice is this should be minus x square and not positive x square. The second thing to note over here is the c, the y-intercept. What's the y-intercept here? You see, if t equals 0, the height of the fountain equals 0. So our y-intercept is 0 in this scenario. So we have our ax square, we have our c, now we are only left with bx. So what exactly is b? B basically gives us this range. Please remember this. This is basically b. So we are given this statement that if the water takes 5 seconds to fall back to the ground from its highest point. So if the water, let's say this is our highest point, this is our x equals minus b over 2a. If the water takes 5 seconds to fall back, if this is 5 seconds, then this is our mirror line. So it is automatically assumed that this should also be 5. See, so this line basically divides the graph into two equal parts. So b equals 10. So our equation b equals 10 will look something like this. Y equals minus x square plus 10x plus 0. You don't need to write the 0. This is our equation. See, this was an interesting question.